All righty. Well, good morning, everyone. I am Dave Cowan, founder and CEO of Silicon Valley Sales Group, a Sandler sales and management training company enabling individuals, professional service providers, and businesses across a range of industries to achieve their revenue and growth goals. And I am one of the organizers of Modern Ideas for Business, and I'll be your moderator today. So our mission at Modern Ideas for Business is to enable business leaders to solve really the multifaceted challenges they face while finding opportunities presented by changes in the economy, the political and legal landscapes, and social trends at work in the markets they serve. We strive to empower those business leaders with the knowledge, skills, networks, and actionable insights necessary to navigate the complexities of the modern business world and to achieve sustainable business success. The other organizers of Modern Ideas for Business are Ed Correa, founder and president of Sagacent Technologies, a global leader in cybersecurity solutions and digital risk management. Paul Duran, a commercial banker for over 25 years and now an expert loan consultant, serving small and medium-sized businesses looking for the methods and means to fund their growth. And Jaco Grobel, our CEO of Broad Vision Marketing, developing and executing inbound marketing strategies that enable clients to consistently create more sales-ready prospects. So we started Modern Ideas for Business with the goal of creating an interactive forum where business leaders can learn from experts in a variety of fields, ask questions, and share their thoughts and opinions on the topic of the day. So during today's webinar, feel free to come off mute and ask questions or offer your thoughts, ideas, and opinions. We will also be monitoring chat if you want to ask questions there. So with that, today I'm happy to introduce our speaker, Dr. Carrie Beam. Carrie graduated from Princeton University with degrees in civil engineering and operations research. She then earned her PhD at the University of California, Berkeley in industrial engineering and operations research, which launched a decades-long career of university teaching and analytics consulting. Carrie is now director of the Master of Science in Business Analytics program at the University of California at Davis, one of the top programs of its kind in the world. Through the MSBA program, Carrie and her colleagues develop high-performance professionals who can create business value from data and analytical models. As she'll explain today, you can connect your company to this highly ranked program by becoming a sponsor of an MSBA practicum project. So Carrie is uniquely qualified to share her thoughts on the current state of artificial intelligence in the workplace and the next generation of data professionals enabling business leaders to leverage data, tools, and analytical models to transform their businesses. So with that, Carrie, we're so happy to have you here today. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm going to share my screen. And are you all able to see this here? Dave, can you give me a nod if you can see it? 2 thumbs up. Fantastic. Well, thank you again, all. I am so delighted to be here. The only thing better than AI on a Thursday morning is AI with all of you on a Thursday morning. So today we're going to talk about capturing competitive advantage with AI, unlocking the power of AI for your business. So here's an outline of today's talk. We're going to talk a little bit about me, and then we're going to talk more about AI, how it works, what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses. Then I'm going to present to you some research. Which job types will be most impacted by AI? There's some where they're boost, there's somewhere it's a drag. I'm then going to go into how to evaluate a statement of work when hiring analytics professional services. Many of you don't do it yourself, but you do hire it out. Here's a checklist of things to look for. Also, why analytics projects fail. And then finally, how to partner with UC Davis for a student practicum capstone. We call this the easy bake oven version of analytics because you don't actually have to do it. We do it for you. And then we serve it up on a silver platter with a little blue and gold Aggie ribbon on top. So thank you again for the introduction. This is me looking like all professional. I studied at Princeton back in the day. I did more at Berkeley when we were still trying to decide if the internet was going to be a thing or not. You know, spoiler alert, yes, it is. had decades in analytics consulting and university teaching. I was the chair of the Franz Edelman Award. It's the Super Bowl of analytics, over $300 billion of recognized benefits since the award's inception in the 1970s. In 2021 and 2022, the government of Chile won for 2021 for using mathematics to optimize COVID vaccination, given limited vaccines and a big population. Next year, I got to award it to the United Nations World Food Program, which then went on to win the Nobel Prize. So that was my Elvis Presley moment. I got to shake the hand of the World Food Program, who went on to shake the hand of Elvis Presley, the Nobel Prize Committee. And I am now a director in the MSBA Analytics Projects out here at UC Davis. However, there is always good news. And halfway through this journey in Time magazine in 2014, they told us that analytics was now stylish. And so, as befits anybody, I decided I needed to upgrade my wardrobe. So I wore this full body 70s suit running around an operations research analytics conference in Indianapolis about 2 years ago. Let's just say that was quite the experience. It was super fun, and I'm going to do it again. What am I doing at Davis? We are developing a new generation of business analytics leaders. People always say, what is an MSBA? Domain expertise, these are people who know business. Artificial intelligence, these are your computer scientists. And then the math, stats, data science. You put all that together right in the middle. That's what our program is. So not only do our students know how to do the math and the computer programming, but they practice translating that into business value. This is what they look like when they graduate. They're not always that wild. We blend classroom and hands-on teaching. Here are some examples of some of the companies that have partnered with us over the years. We've worked with American Eagle, Gain Credit, Casa Real Estate Management, KQED, and then, of course, everybody's favorite ones I see in the audience today. We have Broad Vision Marketing right here, and we have Standard Insights right here. I'll tell you a lot more about them later on. So now let's move into AI, how it works, what are its strengths, and what are its weaknesses? Because I'm guessing a lot of you are the good people of the world, and you've just been sort of doing your thing. You've been drinking your coffee, sending your invoices, and all of a sudden, 2 years ago, OpenAI released this thing, and you're like, oh my goodness. Well, let's define intelligence. Intelligence is the big blue box. This is updating your approach to a problem based on learning. Now, humans can be intelligent, most of us, animals can be intelligent, machines can be intelligent, so that's intelligence. Artificial intelligence is updating your approach to a problem when you are a machine. Now, within this, I'm going to draw three separate distinctions: broad AI, narrow AI, and machine learning. And so a whole bunch of people don't even really differentiate between narrow AI and machine learning. Well, after this morning, you'll be able to. So broad AI doesn't really exist yet. That's the creative leaps of faith. You could think of Archimedes in his bathtub displacing the fluid. That kind of creative leap, that's still safely in the human domain. So if that's what you want to do, stay human. The next type we talk about is narrow AI. Narrow AI is creative approaches to things, but within a very specific domain. One common thing is discriminative AI, like Face ID on your phone. All it needs to decide is this your face or not? Another type is generative AI. This is where you get ChatGPT or DALL-E. Those guys are narrow AI. And then even more narrow, the narrow AI is what we call machine learning. Many of you have seen either supervised or unsupervised machine learning. Supervised is where there's a right answer and you try to train it to guess the right answer, like forecasting. Unsupervised machine learning is often used in something like a market segmentation where you say, all right, computer, I want you to make little groups in here and tell me who's really similar to each other but different than everybody else. So for today's talk, our little star goes down here on the generative AI. So this is in some ways as fancy as we get today, but I don't want you to think that it's broad AI. This kind of thing is not going to be creatively becoming the next Picasso yet. So ChatGPT, what is it? A whole bunch of you sometimes like to get this like alphabet salad on the end of it backwards. I'm going to help you remember the G goes first and then the P and then the T. So GPT stands for generative, pre-trained, transformer. So generative, it makes new patterns. Pre-trained, it uses previous patterns as its training set. And then a transformer, it changes inputs to output. So it changes prompts to answers. So how does it work? Here's a very simplified explanation from Stephen Wolfram. It scans large amounts of training data and it compiles statistical predictions about what word comes next. So this is an example from Wolfram's paper. The best thing about AI is its ability to, it looked on the entire internet and it decided that learn happened 4.5% of the time. So it says most of the time it'll choose the most popular answer. But if it chose the most popular answer all the time, it would be very flat and very same. So sometimes it'll randomize, and 10% of the time it'll choose a top few answer. Sometimes it can be very wrong. We call these hallucinations. For example, if we said the best thing about AI is its ability to bake, that would be wrong. If you're a subject matter expert, you would know this is wrong. Otherwise, it would sound grammatically correct. I think of ChatGPT as sort of like our teenager. The rallying cry of today's youth is sometimes wrong, never in doubt. It scans large amounts of training data. It compiles statistical predictions about what comes next. A simple version is what word will come next. More complex versions use a vector embedded database, which is what idea comes next. So for example, if we're talking about pets, it could talk about dogs or cats. And it can sound extremely confident and correct, even when it's spot on wrong. So what is it good at? It's really good if you want to get the average of the internet. This Wisdom of Crowds book from Surowiecki talks a lot about this. Best chocolate chip cookie recipe, best interview questions, what should I pack on a vacation, drug side effects. So if averaging errors or opinions is helpful, this is what you want. And it's also really good if you already have an expert who can verify, like if you want to ask it to make a first draft of a report, but you're going to proofread it, great use case. What is it bad at? It's bad if you have an edge case. So if you are an outlier. So for example, forecasting methods when major discontinuities exist, COVID-19 supply chains. Let's see. Um, Let me see. Sorry, I just got a little chat message there. Best tourist activities for Zurich, but I'm not an average tourist. I don't like history walking, chocolate, or the zoo. Or if you have a completely new use case, like will Gen Z purchase my new app? Not a lot of data on this yet. So what is it really bad at? If you have a complicated case and the expert knowledge required exceeds current logic capabilities. A really basic example of this is sequential decision analytics. In school, we call this the beer game. The way it works is first you place an order, then the order is brewed at the factory, then it's sent to a distributor and then to the retailer. So it takes a few weeks. The customer demand changes over time, inventory levels change over time. You could see this book by Warren Powell. You could see they've already written a bunch of Python code to solve this. So computers can solve it, but AI can't. It doesn't get that sequential time dependent aspect of it yet. And even somewhat simple cases can completely melt its brain. I was like, okay, can I melt its brain? Sure. Give me a linear programming formulation to assign professors to classes. This is something that we do all the time. I do it, so I know this works. And so it said, okay, chat said, I will do this. I will minimize the mismatch. Subject to each class must be taught by one professor. Each professor has a maximum number of classes, and each professor must be qualified to teach the class. This thing on the top is exactly what ChatGPT gave me. Doesn't that look beautiful with like Greek letters and subscripts and little everythings? I could give it a thumbs up. And so I said, great, give me Python code to implement that. And it said, sure. And this Python code works. You can put it into a Python environment and it will run. However, I asked it, chat, what constraints did that formulation overlook? And it told me, it said, well, we forgot time slot conflicts, we forgot workload balance, we forgot preference, forgot to make sure that 100 students can actually fit in that classroom. I didn't take into account seniority. So this is a good way you can debug your chat things. Ask it, what did it overlook? You get kind of grumpy after a while because you're like, if you knew you were going to overlook it, why didn't you do that in this first place? And the answer is, it's not that smart yet. So now, if that's bad enough, what is it really bad at? If you want to keep your case totally secret, For example, this is from chat. This is what they say. How do they get their language? They get their information using in part that their users or human trainers provide. Their users are you guys. You can ask Reddit, if I let ChatGPT proofread a top secret document, is that a good idea or a bad idea? Our friends at Samsung found out it was a bad idea. The staff uploaded some super secret stuff. If you're Samsung in a proxy war with Apple over patents, the last thing you want is your secret stuff up in chat that then gets dispensed if somebody at Apple asks a question about the same thing. So now let's talk about which job types will be most impacted by AI. Where's the boost? Where's the drag? There's a paper, and it's written by people at OpenAI and one fellow at the University of Pennsylvania. So OpenAI is the same company that wrote ChatGPT. So these are the people from the company talking about the impact of their tool on large language models. They define a concept of exposure. Exposure is potential economic impact. And so tasks with exposure to GPT technology include labor augmenting, they make you better at what you do, and labor displacing. They can replace you to do it. And they also talk about three levels of exposure. So no exposure means we are not reducing the time to complete the task or the task quality degrades. It's not helpful to try to have an AI tool do this. Direct exposure, they talk about this and they define this as using only the GPT will reduce the time for a human to do the task by 50% or more. So this is, you're just as good, you're now faster. There's direct exposure using only a chat or a Claude. LLM plus exposed, GPT alone doesn't help, but additional software, like if you can put in image recognition, if you can put in sound, if you can put in other things, can be developed to reduce the time by 50% or more. A short crib sheet here is no exposure, you're in the clear. Direct exposure, those tools are out there today. And LLM plus exposed, those tools are out there, but you have to spend a lot of money to get them. I have recompiled and rearranged the data from this paper. They have divided jobs into 5 job zones, 1 through 5. Job zone 1, very little preparation required, a high school GED. And this is our GPT only. They found about 3% of these jobs are going to be exposed to just a plain old chat GPT. If you get into something that requires high school education, about 7% of these are exposed. Something with a vocational school, on-the-job training, or an AA degree, 11%. With a bachelor's degree, 23%, and master's degree or higher, 23%. Even more interesting is if you really beef it up. So if you have the image recognition and the rest of everything, almost 3/4 of these tasks done by a worker with a bachelor's degree are estimated to be impacted here. So if you or your business has a lot of employees or a lot of work in this job zone 4 and 5, the GPT models are really something that you need to pay attention to. So people always ask me, well, is anything safe anymore? The answer is yes. Stonemasons, zero impact. Athletes and sports competitors, if you have been watching the Olympics or Paralympics, very little impact. And my own personal favorite, bartender helpers. Somehow the bartender was affected, but the helper was not. So I thought, okay, I'll demote myself down to the helper here. So the next thing what we want to do is just summarize the impact on the labor market. Nearly all knowledge work jobs will be impacted, some more than others. The impact is not necessarily bad. Many jobs, the GPT will augment or speed it. It won't replace the workers. Jobs which require a college degree or higher, these are predicted to be the most impacted. And jobs which require a college but not a graduate degree are probably the most impacted by the full range of GPT and the big guns LLM technologies. And this is probably going to be even more true in the next 5 years as those big technologies come out of their $1 million development cycles and into the $20 a month subscription category. The next thing that we need to talk about is people often say, I've heard it's good at some things, but not others. How can we tell the difference? Well, it turns out our friends at the Boston Consulting Group, in conjunction with Harvard Business School, had the same question, and they did a study and wrote a paper on it. This paper is called Navigating the Jagged Technological Frontier. They actually looked at the effects of AI on knowledge workers. They define the jagged technological frontier as something, if it's within the frontier, tasks are easily done by or with AI. And if the task is outside of the frontier, it's not easily done by AI. And everybody's pretty good with that definition. They say, okay, in the frontier, easy to do with AI, out of the frontier, hard. But how can you tell the difference? It's harder than it looks on TV. I'm going to go with a crowd participation here. So please just drop your things in the chat. Let's look. We've got two separate questions here. I'm going to look at the one on the left first. You're working for a footwear company in the unit developing new products. You want to generate ideas for a new shoe, pick the best idea, make a prototype, come up with a list of steps, come up with the name, segment the footwear industry. So that's the first task. That's the one on the left. The one on the right is Harold Van Mulders wants to do something a little bit similar. He wants to pick one brand to focus on. He wants you to support your views with data and or interview quotations. He wants innovative and tactical actions. So I'm going to ask for the crowd, please just drop it in the chat if you can. Are you voting that the one on the left, the pink one, is easier for AI to do? Or the one on the right, the blue one, is easier for AI to do? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. Let's see. You guys are good. We have a lot of people voting for the one on the left. That would be an interesting vote. Let's take a look here. There's a lot of similarities. You've got to be creative in both. You've got to explain why in both. Given a word limit in both. Use your best knowledge. All right. Are you ready? Set. Here we go. You all are right. The one on the left is more easily done by AI. It's inside the jagged frontier. Why? The internet average is a really good proxy for this problem. You know, brainstorming, creating ideas, coming up with a list of steps to launch a product. This has been done before. Product names, new shoe ideas, creative brainstorming. And also there's no need to resolve conflicting internal data. What's the problem with the one on the right? AI really performed poorly here. It's outside the jagged frontier. The internet average is not a good proxy. We're looking at your internal data, which is special to your company, not the world at large. The requirements are specific here. And also the interview text data was in conflict with the numbers in Excel. And so that conflict would need to be resolved. A human analyst could really work at that and ask questions, and AI essentially just melted here. So is AI always helpful to all of us? If it's within the AI frontier, humans are faster, humans are better, and we also get the most significant boost to employees performing in the lower 50%. So the weaker the employee is at this task, the bigger a boost it will be if the task is within the frontier. If the task is outside of the frontier, humans using AI are maybe a little faster, but they're worse. All right, how useful can AI be? Well, we asked our friends up at Amazon here, Andy Jassy. He said, well, their company's AI assistant, little pop quiz here. Drop it in the chat. Do you think they saved $10 million? Do you think they saved 130 million with this refactoring assistant? Or do you think they saved 260 million? And I'll give you a hint. He said it's been a game changer. So how much money do you think it takes for Amazon to say it's been a game changer? All right, I see a lot of you all can count $260 million and 4,500 developer years of work. It's a lot of people they didn't have to hire to refactor their code with AI. So you all might be wondering, will AI eat my job? My answer today is no, but people trained in your field and also trained in AI probably will. What to do? You can rent it from us. If you come to the UC Davis Graduate School of Management in our MSBA program, you can keep your employees while they upskill. We offer a part-time MSBA program, 2 years, a tuition discount for working students, downtown San Francisco classes Thursday nights, Fridays, and Saturdays. The AI and machine learning are baked into the curriculum. And when they finish, you still have your employee and they are skilled in your domain, whether it's accounting or marketing or manufacturing. Plus, they know AI. We are #1 worldwide for return on investment. And you can hang out with fun students like this who fly on blue clouds over the Golden Gate Bridge. Please do reach out to me if you're interested in learning more about offering this program to your employees. Next question, how to evaluate a statement of work when hiring analytics professional services. Must-have items in many typical professional statements of work, an executive summary, objectives, background, deliverables, requirements, acceptance criteria. All of this is the same. You need this as well. But analytics projects also need technical project objectives. They need intellectual property ownership of the data and also of the algorithms. It's very common that your agreement will say that you keep your data, but they can use a public algorithm and they can also reuse it on other clients. You also need to talk about data privacy and security. Ed over at Sagacent knows all about this. You need a plan if there's a data breach. You need to back up your data and test it regularly. Coding standards, you need version control. GitHub should be an option here. You need backups. When I say backups, I mean if the computer dies tomorrow, you need to be able to restore from scratch. Software, you should decide if it's open source, Python or R. That means you don't have to pay licensing fees. Commercial, there's a whole bunch of great commercial ones. You do have to pay for them, and typically you pay ongoing as well. Data assessment, it can be step one if you don't know what data you have and you don't know what you need. But it typically, like a completed assessment, will have how much you have and what's in your data. If you don't have a data assessment, what a typical statement of work will say is we'll do the assessment. At the end of the assessment, we'll know answers to these things, and these are our assumptions to do that. All right, now let's talk a little bit about why analytics projects fail. It's not all just because bugs or somebody didn't back it up. Failure can be expensive. Zillow.com ended its offers, which is an automated pricing and purchasing algorithm, performed so well in 2020. But in 2021, material and labor costs changed radically. The model's forecasts were inaccurate. Lost $550 million, laid off 20% of their staff. That's another example of running into one of those forecasting discontinuities. Bye-bye, Zillow. Common mistakes people make in model building. And certainly, please feel free to screenshot this. And if you are hiring out analytics, give this to your analytics contractor and say, convince me you're not making any of these mistakes. Mistake number one, don't test your model on the training data set. You train a model on a training data set. If you test it on that trained data set, it's going to look super, super good. You want to test it on different data. Mistake number two is to allow target leakage. For example, if you're trying to forecast the price of a house, what it's going to sell for, you don't want to allow a real estate agent's estimate of that value into your model, because when you're trying to apply it in the real world, you won't have that expert opinion there. So you don't want to allow target leakage to come through. Mistake number three, Zillow did them all. Use vanilla forecasting methods when you've got a big discontinuity. If you have any reason to believe some big changes are happening, you can't use standard statistical forecasting methods. Mistake number four is overfitting or underfitting your model. If you overfit your model, it's a way of saying you did something too fancy. And if you underfit your model, it's a way of saying you did something too easy. So you want to get Goldilocks just right here. Mistake number five piggybacks on number four. You can use a fancy model with poor explainability. So poor explainability is, we can't tell you why, but we think you'd like this jam. Good explainability would be, we see you're buying peanut butter, and lots of people who buy peanut butter also like this type of jam. Would you like some as well? And then mistake number 6, many people don't test their recommendations thoroughly enough. This is very important, especially if you want to be rolling out any kind of automated machine learning in a production set. Test it on one customer first, or even better, run a simulation and test it under many different conditions on the computer before you start to move expensive real-world merchandise around on it. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how to partner with UC Davis for a student practicum capstone. This is the easy bake oven version of analytics. I want to introduce Standard Insights. I believe we've got Jerry in our audience today too. And then also Broad Vision Marketing. We've got Yako in our audience. They both partnered with us last year and have returned, and we very much value and appreciate their partnership. With their permission, I'm getting to share with you a little bit of what the student projects did with them last year. So this is from students Avani, Hitesh, Victor Yao, Meghana, and Hanwei Yao, and Victor Mao. So Standard Insights, artificial intelligence as a service. This company takes raw first-party data. So think maybe I'm a grocery store and I've got checkout data. They turn it into derived data to help target the right person with the right product at the right time. They're not selling jam or peanut butter. They're not even selling the information about jam and peanut butter. They're selling the knowledge about who's doing what with the jam and with the peanut butter. This was the strategic arc of that project. We wanted to get strategic customer engagement and revenue maximization to get some analytics working to really move this forward. So this is what the students did. They computed some metrics, they did data normalization, they ran a k-means clustering model, they found the optimal number of clusters. And some of you are thinking, wah, 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 what does this mean? This is what it means. We were able to say, here's the recency data since last purchase. Here's how many purchases the customer made, and here's how much money it cost. And if you look at this, you could see this cluster number 1 here in this nice dark green. These are the people who are really that you want to pay good attention to. But it also said, we can flag the name, email, and customer ID of all these red guys about to go to sleep so the business can take action. This is what Standard Insights can bring to its customers. And this is the type of analysis that one of our student projects did. The next one I'd like to share with you is Broad Vision Marketing. The students were Ava Chen, Nima Guha, Cindy Jian, Charles Wang, and Ji Zhu. So Broad Vision, digital marketing, HubSpot certified. They have a wide range of clients across different industries such as healthcare, home building. The problem statement is what website content features can help a website achieve top rankings in Google search engine. That's why people go to Broad Vision, is they say, I want to be on page 1 of Google. Can you help me get there? The student project focused on a couple different spaces. These are some of the results from the pharmaceutical space. They built a web scraper, and then they generated their own data set about what the web scraper said. And then they cleaned up the data and gave us some results. They used a multinomial regression, splitting the page factor into a dummy variable, multinomial logistic regression. That's a super fancy way of saying, does this have any effect on that? And then also a random forest method is another standard machine learning tool. So if you were in the pharmaceutical space, these are some of the results. If you were ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 on Google, turns out these all had 5, 6, 7 videos. So it turns out that we were able to say, you got to have 5 to 7 videos. That's what it takes to get on the front page of Google. Whereas these people down in pages 21 through 25, so second, third page and worse, they had 0 to 1 video. So the insights from this is if the pharmaceutical space, word count doesn't really matter, more videos were higher rankings, and the call to action links are significant. This allowed Broad Vision to have the insights that this is the magic formula to get a pharmaceutical industry client higher ranked in Google, hopefully looking for a 1 to 5% increase in click-through rates based on the data. So MSBA in a nutshell, we have 100 students. They're young students. They're reasonably good students. And the program is 1 year in downtown San Francisco. If you work with us on a project, you'll have about 4 to 6 students over about 10 months, about 8 hours per student per week. You'll meet with them each week. They will solve a real business problem. These are some of the problems that we're currently working on: marketing mix, product design, volunteer engagement, bundling. Everybody wants a chatbot these days, customer targeting. We also do this database refactoring. This one is colloquially known as "I made a mess of my data and I'd like you to clean it up." We are currently working on 100 million rows of public-facing data where that's happened with one of our partners. Why else do industry partners like to work with us? We do embedded sustained workforce support. We work with you after the project is over. Very cost-effective resources. You get our students, they're trained in the latest analytics tools and techniques. They think fresh. You can have great networking and collaboration opportunities. And also recruitment source. You get first peek at our resume book. And of course, you also get support from GSM faculty if you have a really hard problem. So, a summary of today's talk: AI, how it works, strengths and weaknesses. Statistically, it does the average. So, the closer what you want is the average, the better it's going to be for you. What job types will be most impacted by AI? Those requiring college or more education for tasks which are inside the jagged technological frontier. That's what's going to be most impacted by AI. So if anybody in the audience is a CPA, I'm looking at you. How to evaluate a statement of work. Ownership of data and models and data assessment. You've got to make sure, in particular, the ownership of the data and the ownership of the models is clearly spec'd out. And you do need a very good data assessment before you can go forward. Why do analytics projects fail? Well, you guys probably know there are a whole bunch of ways you can drive a project to failure. In addition to all of the normal ways, there are 6 big mistakes in analytics projects that you can also make. I want to encourage you to not make them. And then finally, how to partner with UC Davis for a student practicum capstone. It's super easy. Drop me an email, cbeam@ucdavis.edu. Happy to open a conversation. And then I also want to encourage you, I mean, you could screenshot anything you want here, but if you want to do any more reading, I want to encourage you to screenshot this as well. This contains some of those original research papers and also our little note from Amazon, how they saved a whole bunch of money. So with that, I think I will stop sharing and thank you so, so much. I'm going to open the floor up for discussions and questions.
Carrie, thank you so much. That was fabulous and I think enlightening for all. And just so everybody knows, we will make a recording of Carrie's presentation available on the Modern Ideas for Business website, as well as Carrie, I'm assuming it's okay, we can make a copy of your presentation also available on the website.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so for anybody who wants those, just go to modernideasforbusiness.com. They'll be posted hopefully within the next 24 hours. But yeah, as
Dave,
Carrie said, open. Yes, Ed.
Dave, this is Ed. Why don't we do this? If people will use the raise your hand indicator, I will unmute you and you can ask your own question of Carrie.
Perfect. That's what I would do.
Our first person, unfortunately, is also labeled Vicky McGee. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I think it's you're talking about me, Jerry Abiog. So
Yes.
we had the privilege of partnering with Carrie and her students last year, and we just got off a meeting just a few hours back for the second year. But a couple things that we've learned and helped benefited Standard Insights. Number one, it builds up our credibility factor that Standard Insights has partnered with a top tier of analytics firms on the planet, bar none, located in the Bay Area. So it gives us instant credibility now that AI is becoming, like it or not, sometimes an overused buzzword. And number two, what Carrie had displayed in her talk earlier, we're actually implementing some of that for a trade show here in a couple days. My team and our partner companies will be heading down to Miami for the food and beverage distribution show. And part of our marketing material includes AI-driven inventory sales and profitability predictions, what she had shown in that diagram, implementing RFM analysis. And even for that, our partner companies were being sponsored by Zebra, a $1 billion OEM manufacturer. So what she's saying about AI and what's happening now into the future, there's a lot to be said about that.
Great, thank you.
Jaco, you have a
Next,
question?
Jaco, I see you have a question.
Yeah, also maybe more of a statement. One of the benefits of the project working with Carrie and her team was that we really struggled in the beginning to really get the project clearly defined. And Carrie came in on the meeting, and with her experience, I want to say she whipped us into shape within 5 minutes. and that made a huge difference on the project. I remember during a presentation where companies gave feedback on the projects, there was an pharmacist from UC Davis, and he mentioned that this is his 4th year working on the project or with them. And he said the biggest benefit is that every year he developed this ability to better define the project, which leads to a better outcome. And this is our 2nd year working with UC Davis and Carrie. And I can see it this year. We are thinking about what we want to achieve so much better. One of the things that during the project came out is that we did a data analysis to identify the best web pages that has got the best potential for optimization. And just from a benefit perspective, we went from maybe 8 to 10 hours in doing that and analyzing a website to now where we can get that done within an hour, hour and a half. So that's a significant benefit to us.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jaco. David, I see you have a question of your own.
Yeah, so Carrie, I think there's a lot of interest from the participants in your program and how to become involved with your program. I just have a question on how do you decide which projects to work on? And I assume a lot of companies approach you with ideas. How do you decide which ideas you can really, your work can benefit and which maybe need to be reformatted or thought through differently to achieve a good solution?
Yeah, great question. So the first step is to have a conversation with me, and we talk about, is there a business problem? And then is there data available? Either sometimes do they have internal data, like at Standard Insights, that they can share with us? Or like with Broad Vision Marketing, is there external data, like what is Google putting on top that we could scrape and assemble? So I help them figure out what data sources and what kinds of algorithms are able to do that. And then from there, we look at things like, is the company able to devote an hour a week to meeting with students? Does the company look like they would provide a good partnership with students? We do it by Zoom and also in person. And so, yes, and we work with everything from teeny weeny companies, single person startups where the spouse barely let them out of the garage, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies.
Well,
I guess, yeah. So some people ask, you do need to be a company. So we like them to be LLCs or, incorporated somewhere. And then the other thing we really look for is good data and somebody who's going to give the students a good experience. And also, sometimes it looks like it's not quite a fit this year, but we'll come back and I can help them say, do X and Y. And then next year we'll put you in much better shape for it.
Carrie, while we wait for other people to raise their hands and become unshy, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, most people seem to lump AI and automation and robotics all in the same bucket. And I loved your explanation about AI and threatening certain work elements. But I'd like to ask you maybe to go a little bit outside your element and talk about automation and robotics. In my mind, that tends to be the greatest threat to the lower trained or lower educated workforce. Certainly being a farmer's son, I saw how machinery impacted the farm. And I'm thinking when we have more autonomous vehicles running around and doing things like that, people without special training are going to be threatened in that way. But I see it as two different threats. Can you comment?
A little bit. So the text-based GPT things where you're typing stuff into it and it's giving you words back, that is going to be much more of an impact on these college-educated jobs because that's what they do all day is they sit and type.
Yes.
Not to make everybody feel super basic in their job, but that's what they do. But then if you look at more of a physical job where you're moving things, it's actually harder to have a robot replace that. It is amazingly difficult to teach a robot to pick up a cup. It is crazy hard to have an autonomous driving vehicle. That's why all of those CAPTCHA things ask you to mark a traffic light or a sidewalk, they're gathering that for training data because they still don't have it as good as they need it to be. So just to say that it is extremely difficult if you have a 3D problem where there's motion because you need to get the computer vision and the computer motion integrated fast enough. So there will
Excellent.
definitely be impact, but it's harder than it looks to replace that.
Thank you so much. Dave, I see you have a question.
So I actually have a comment. There are a lot of people on this call who might be thinking, how do I actually apply this, or how would I apply this in my work? And in organizing this talk, I just wanted to say that Jaco had a really interesting insight, which was you don't necessarily have to have the data analytics for your company to improve your operations. I think what Broad Vision Marketing also thought about was what's some research that Carrie and her team could do that would benefit my clients, that would benefit the people that I serve. And so for those of you thinking about, is there a project that can help you benefit in your business, think about your clients' needs and maybe some research that Carrie and her team can do to help them. So that increases your value as a trusted advisor to the clients that you serve. So that was my comment. And then Carrie, just another question, personal to me. My son works as a paralegal in an immigration attorney law firm, and he started using ChatGPT about a year ago to do research on experts and expertise that companies want to bring in to the United States. But I just wonder if you and your team have done any work with law firms and what that might be, or if you haven't, where you can see this could work well in a law firm.
Yeah, so we haven't done a project yet with a law firm to my knowledge, but we are in talks with 2 or 3 law firms to look at seeing about bringing them on. And I can tell you just very generally, one of the challenges is with an employment law firm. And one of their questions is, can we help them use GPT-like technology to go through an email database and quickly assemble emails that will support or refute an allegation. So for example, if someone is claiming that their boss made them work more than 40 hours a week without overtime pay, most of those email conversations are not going to have a keyword, overtime violation in them. So you can't just search for that. But you can ask ChatGPT to look for things like, hey, boss, I'm working late again, or hey, my paycheck is short again. So we're looking at ways to help use GPT technology for that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put out the plea again. If you've got questions, I'm happy to feature you and let you ask our guru.
Yeah.
No hands.
That's okay. I'll give you just another redux. Is some of you might be thinking, oh, yes, I knew that all. That's spot on. And in that case, absolutely go have yourself a cappuccino. Some of the rest of you may be feeling this is just absolutely going to melt your brain, and that's okay. Lots of us have had our brains melted by this about every 6 months. What I do want to encourage you to do is just use the tools. It's worth it, in my opinion, to pay the $20 a month or $15 a month to subscribe to the premium version of whatever tool. And while being mindful of, obviously, you wouldn't upload confidential private business information, but try to use it in your daily life. For example, if you're trying to decide what to wear to a business meeting, give it that context, ask it to do that. If you're interested in the macronutrient content of your lunch, tell it what you're having for lunch and ask it to do that. What you want to do is give yourself the fluency and the practice, just as if you were learning a foreign language. You would maybe go to the streets of Paris and strike up conversations with people in French, asking them about small talk about this, that, or the other. Try to use these tools in small ways in your everyday life. And then the other thing, this may not sit well with many of you, but try to find somebody from Gen Z. So these are people generally 25 years of old and under. And if you can get it, find a middle schooler. And the reason you want these people is they do not really have a memory of working in a world with handheld calculators or newspapers, or when they weren't not only instantly connected to social media, but connected to AI. They are AI natives. And so their way of moving through the world is very different. And You might have to learn some new slang and you might have to really bite your tongue at times. But it's really interesting to watch their whole experience. In particular, for example, many of them don't talk on the phone anymore. They only text and they only do AI chats. And they also expect perfect, quick responses from humans at all times. And this is a little bit maybe because they're young and impatient, but it's mostly because they've been growing up with their expectation is Netflix will serve them whatever they want instantly. They've never had to wait for the 6 o'clock news. So use it in your daily life and try to learn from the young folks around us.
Jaco, do you mind holding for one moment? We have another person ahead of you.
Sure.
Yeah, if you could lower your hand and I'll come back to you. We have a person in the audience, unfortunately, with the same name, Vicky McGee. Could you share your name and ask your question? If you're the person that's in the attendees group that raised your hand, you're being featured right now.
Are they still on mute?
No, they're allowed to talk. I'm going to remute them. And Jaco, why don't you go ahead and go?
Okay. Carrie, when you think just of what you've seen people using AI, what are some of the things that you've seen how they use ChatGPT to improve, say, things such as creativity, innovation, and problem solving? Do you have certain examples that's really good for us to sort of know in general?
Yes, a really good way to do it is you want to give it a framework. And so, for example, let's say I'm trying to plan a vacation to Egypt. What you would do is you would first say, I am this many years old. I'm an American woman looking to travel with one person to Cairo, Egypt for 1 week. So you want to give it as much context framing as you can.
Yeah.
And then you tell it what's good and what's bad. Because if I'm a little bit different than everybody else, maybe I want to go to Egypt, but I don't want to see the pyramids.
Yeah.
It's going to default to the internet average. So tell it as much of the specifics of your problem as you can. Tell it the good and the bad, especially if you have an example, like if you want it to write a report for you, give it 3 reports that you think are good reports, and then 3 reports that you think are bad reports for whatever reason. Maybe you don't like the writing style or it's the wrong idea. So give it the context, give it the examples, and then ask it to go. And so we would absolutely see that in terms of brainstorming. So for example, if I am Broad Vision Marketing having a new customer, a dog food customer coming to me, I might say, I am a dog food consumer. I'm a person buying dog food. I live in the suburbs. I've got a 40 pounds, Labrador mix. Give me 5 names of dog foods that I might find appealing to buy.
It's so interesting that your first example is actually so applicable because we are leaving in about 15 days. We are leaving for South Africa and Europe. And we are on the verge where we are looking at what are the things to do there. So really, the framework that you mentioned really puts it in perspective and can help to narrow it down.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also ask it to do some debugging on that, which is, what are some things that we should do on this trip? And then, okay, what did that list forget? And
Yeah.
then let's say that something's gone horribly wrong on this trip. What is it likely to have been? How could I have prevented that?
That's an interesting one. Yeah. Thanks.
So we've identified who the person was. Her name is Carrie. Carrie, would you like to ask? Well, let me unmute you. Carrie,
Hi,
there we are.
it's actually Jennifer, otherwise known as Carrie or Vicky or something. But this has been an absolutely fabulous session, Carrie. I truly appreciate it. I am currently based in Europe, in Oslo, Norway, and I do a lot of speaking about AI and integration of AI in the future in society and business. And one of the big questions over here is around regulations. Do you have a point of view, shall we say, on whether the government, whether corporations, who should be providing regulations to ensure that AI is safe in use?
Great question. I think that's going to be culturally driven. And you can, as we've seen with GDPR, the European culture is a little bit different than the American culture. I'm not super expert in either, but in general, from what I can see, the European culture tends to be more concerned with the privacy and safety of its citizens, even if the corporate over there makes a little bit less profit. And in America, we seem to have the opposite approach, which is we tend to be more into corporate profit, even at the expense of some privacy or some safety. So I think that's generally, it's going to be driven by the culture of where you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, final opportunity for people to ask questions.
Well, everybody, I'm just going to drop my email in the chat if anybody wants to reach out. Either if you have any other questions, if you would like a guest speaker, if you would like to come learn about our students, if you would like to learn about a part-time MSBA so you can upskill your employees while you keep them, or if you'd like to talk with me about a project next year, would love to talk, love to open a conversation.
Fantastic. Dave, would you like to close out the meeting?
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. So, thank you all for attending today's webinar. Special thank you to Carrie for a great presentation. I think quite a few people said they would like to receive copies of the presentation. So we will see if we can't email a copy of the presentation to everybody. But as I said, it will also be available on the Modern Ideas for Business website. If you want to put it on your calendars, next month, we're adding a webinar on Thursday, October 10th, when Nicole McKenzie, founder and CEO of Momentum Accounting and a seasoned expert in small business finances, will talk about the secret to sustainable profitability, the 3 magic numbers you must know. And then our upcoming webinar in November 14th, will be with Clint Tripathi, and it will be about making strategy your next best habit. So, and if you'd like to be on our mailing list, reach out to any of us or put your email address in the chat, and we will make sure that that you get announcements for those upcoming talks.
And I'm throwing the URL in the chat for Modern Ideas for Business. Please visit the website frequently. This year, 2024, our goal was to have a different webinar every other month. As the year's gone on, we've begun to produce more events, and our target for 2025 is a webinar every month. So stay tuned. Okay, well, I'll guess I'll close it out. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you, and have a great day. Go forth and succeed.